Today we are going to be grading every team's 2025 NFL draft. Now we did this a couple days ago after the first round, but now we're going to base it off of every team's entire draft. We're going to use again a tier list to kind of visually show and sort of compare each team as well, again visually. Before we get into the video, make sure to leave a like if you enjoy, hit the subscribe button if you're new, and let's get into this sort of tier list grading every team's draft. So first, we have the Bears. Now, originally, I was kind of suspect of the Colston Loveland pick, but now that I've had time to think about it, I kind of like the pick. I feel like maybe he fits their style a little more, being a vertical possession type tight end that can, create mismatches with DBs. And I also feel like, yeah, they have Cole Kmet, but I feel like Ben Johnson will utilize two tight ends enough where it's completely fine to have him next to Cole Kmet. And anything to help out Caleb Williams, I think, is a good pick. Then they had 3 second-round picks. I think all of them were very good. Started off with Luther Burden, I think an absolute steal, because he needed to get the guy next to sort of replace Keenan Allen to be next to Moore and Odunze. And I think you did absolutely perfect with that. Ozzie Traplow and Shamar Turner are the other second-round picks. I think Ozzie Traplow is a fine pick. Obviously not the tackle, not one of the top 3 tackles they maybe wanted in the first round, but you still get a quality guy. And then Shamar Turner, just you need somebody next to Grady Jarrett. I think they were, they did a lot of work on D tackles. Shamar Turner, he was in a very good Texas A&M D line with Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorton. And then all the other picks, I'm not going to be too familiar with the later picks, but I like the Kyle Monangai pick out of Rutgers. I think getting him in the 7th is great. You can't get Genty. They didn't go for any of the other top guys, and you get Monangai in the 7th. And then Hypolite, Frazier, Luke Newman, another tackle, fine, I feel like maybe they could have maybe got a safety in this draft. Maybe they could have got an edge rusher, but overall, I think they did pretty decent. I'll probably give them a B. I really liked, obviously, the Luther Burden pick, and the Colston Loveland pick isn't as bad as I initially thought. I might have been overreacting. I thought, as many did, that they were going to go Tyler Warren, but overall, good draft for me. Next, we have the Panthers. They started off their first round getting Teteroy McMillan out of Arizona. Now, everyone wanted them to go defense. Everyone thought they'd go defense. But then when they went with offense, they're like, this makes sense. You get Bryce Young, a true big body, reliable, go up and get it type of receiver. And the pick made even more sense when you look at their next 2 picks, getting Nick Scorton and Princely Umanmielen in the 2nd and 3rd round. Nick Scorton could have went in the 1st, potentially. Definitely early 2nd. And Princely Umanmielen maybe could have gone in the 2nd. So to get those 2 guys in the 2nd and 3rd on top of that number 1 receiver, I think was great. Trevor Etienne, I thought it was an okay pick. I don't mind them going running back because Brooks is out for a year. And I think they signed Rico Dowdle, and he might only be on a year-long deal, so I don't think it's the end of the world to get a guy like Etienne. Now, is he the best running back they could have taken? Who knows, but it was just a fine pick. Lathan Ransom, I like Lathan Ransom. Don't know if they needed that play style of safety. They might have needed more of a roamer. But, I mean, Ohio State national champion, can't go wrong there. Cam Jackson, I thought, was a good pick. Just a huge D tackle. Mitch Evans, solid tight end. Jimmy Horn, one of the few really good receivers at Colorado. He can maybe give them some return. I thought it was a very good draft. Could have got a corner, maybe a linebacker, maybe a better safety. Maybe instead of using a pick on ETN, you go safety there and then get ETN a different running back later in the 4th. But overall, I thought it was a very good draft. I'm gonna give them, it's an A or B plus for me. I'm gonna give them an A draft, just because I feel like they could have got some secondary because they don't have a lot in that, area. But overall, I think they did a very good job. Next is the Cardinals, another team that I really liked their draft. So they got Walter Nolan in the first. I thought they'd go corner, but obviously they ended up. I thought they could go Will Johnson at corner, but as you can see, they get him later on in the second. Now, obviously, his fall has to do with like that knee condition that he has. If he can stay healthy, it'll be an absolute steal for the Cardinals. And going back to Walter Nolan, I thought that was a great pick. Could have been, arguably the best D tackle outside of Mason Graham. So, and then you pair him on the D line with Jordan Burch out of Oregon. I thought was a great pick. Denzel Burke, another good. So you get two good Big Ten corners there. They really went towards the Big Ten route with Johnson, Burke, Simon, and Burch and Burke. Another good draft, honestly. I'll give them a B+ for their draft for the Cardinals. Next is the Falcons. They got their first round. They started off their first round with Jalen Walker, and then they traded back up to get James Pierce. Now, they gave up a first, but I think they swapped firsts with the Rams. Now, I think the Falcons will have a better first-round pick, like higher first-round pick than the Rams. But a swap first isn't that bad. You gave up a second to get James Pierce. I don't hate that. They needed pass rush so bad, and they got two of the better ones in the draft in Jalen Walker and James Pierce. And then you get Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman. You double up on pass rusher, and Pierce also allows Walker to play off ball maybe more. And you double up on safety. Not too familiar with Jack Nelson out of the 7th. They didn't make a lot of picks, as you can see. I know we're not grading undrafted free agents, but they also picked up, I think, Kobe Bryant, who was a great undrafted free agent pickup for them. Again, maybe could have used some O-line because they lost Drew Dahlman. But I think it was a very good draft for the Falcons. I'll give them an A for now, subject to change, obviously. Next is the Ravens. This is where we might see our first A+ draft. Started off first round, Malachi Starks at 27. Great value for Malachi Starks. Complements Kyle Hamilton perfectly. Second round, Mike Green. We know there's the off-the-field issues, but as a football player in the second round, very, very good pickup. Then you get Emory Jones, a solid tackle. Going later down the draft board, LeJonte Wester's a good pick out of the 6th round. Aeneas Pebbles, another good pick in the 6th. Teddy Buchanan, very solid linebacker. They filled a ton of needs. Like if you look at the needs ESPN has here, they got a D tackle, they got a corner, they got a guard, got an edge, got a receiver. I think this was just a very complete and productive draft for the Ravens. A lot of great value as well, considering they had late picks in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. They had the 27th pick in the first 4 rounds, and I really like all 4 of their picks there. I'm going to give them an A+, honestly. I'm going to give the Ravens the first A+ grade. Next is the Bills. I'll get rid of the D tier. You never know how these rookies are going to perform, so I feel like it's hard to actually grade a team that bad. Anywho, next is the Bills. They got Maxwell Hairston with their first pick at corner. I like the pick. Because again, there's all the question marks with Will Johnson. So I like the pick of Maxwell Hairston. I love the 3 picks they made at D-line, getting TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, and Landon Jackson. Thought those were great values. Jackson Hayes is a good pick. Dorian Strong, Chase Lunt. I think this is another good draft. I'll go B+ for the Bills for their draft. Next is the Bengals. I thought initially, I think it's a decent draft. Shamar Stewart's a little bit of a risk, the low production, high physical tools, but that Texas A&M whole scheme itself might have limited his production potentially. Demetrius Knight I thought was a good pick. Dylan Fairchild as well, Barrett Carter. Didn't make a ton of picks. Maybe could have got a corner. I'm glad they didn't go receiver because I just don't think they need to. You have 3 really good receivers. So I like that aspect. I'll probably give it a B alongside the Bears for now. Just a solid draft. Didn't get a lot of picks, but that's not always a bad thing. So thought it was a fine draft. Browns are next. Now, obviously, they had one of the more talked about drafts for later on. A lot of double up in positions. Obviously, Mason Graham and the trade that came with Mason Graham, I was a huge fan of. You trade back 3 spots, still get one of the top players, blue chip players. You get Jags next year's first. I think they could be a decent team next year, but you never really know. And a first-round pick is still a first-round pick. So even if the Jags are like a playoff team, you can still get like the 20th pick out of them, which is still very good. Carson Schwessinger, I thought, was a great pick in the second round. He could have been a first-round pick. They doubled up on running back with Judkins and Sampson. I thought it was, interesting going Judkins first over Travion Henderson. But then when you see him get Dylan Sampson, it kind of makes a little more sense. Love the Harold Fannin pick in the third. Think he could potentially be the third best tight end. He might have got picked as the third tight end, but... And then, obviously, the QBs with Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. I don't know about the decision to take 2 quarterbacks. I like that they ended up with Shedeur. I thought that was very good to get, like, a 5th-round pick, you get a potential franchise quarterback. I know Dylan Gabriel could be that as well, but I like Shedeur's chances a lot more than Gabriel's. So, despite the double up on running backs and the double up on quarterbacks, I thought it was a great draft overall. And I thought the trade back to 5 was great too, because maybe they didn't see Travis Hunter as the two-way player like the Jags did. Because if you're only going to utilize Travis Hunter at majority one position, it's not necessarily worth taking at 2. So if they didn't view that, I think it was a very good trade. I'm giving a lot of high grades here so far, but I'm going to give the Browns an A for their draft. I'll go B+ just because they doubled up on a lot of positions. And maybe Travis Hunter isn't a guy worth trading away from and missing out on the chance to draft. Next is the Cowboys. So they took Tyler Booker in the first. Really like that pick. Then they get Donovan Ezaraku. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but they get him in the second round. Another great pick. I thought he was a very late first round, high second round type player. Siobhan Revel, obviously you have the injury concerns with him. They didn't get a receiver, though, when you look at the draft. And I feel like that, like, what do you have? Jalen Tolbert, Kavontae Turpin next to CeeDee Lamb. Really think they could have gone receiver here. And you take a risk on Siobhan Revel with his injury. Also, ECU corner, who knows what that can translate to. I'm going to give it a C+ for the Cowboys, mainly carried by Ezraquo and Tyler Booker, because I really like those picks. Next is the Broncos at 12. Now, at first, I was a little confused why they went Jahdae Barron, considering they needed a lot of help on offense, I felt like. But when you look at being able to have a secondary of him, Riley Moss, and PS2, I think it was a very good fit for those 3. And then you then address the offensive needs with R.J. Harvey and Pat Bryant. I like those picks, filling those 2 spots. And then, other guys like Q Robinson, Savion Jones. You did get a tight end, which I thought was good. They needed a tight end. I just feel like they could have got more top-tier talent on offense, which is what they needed, because you didn't really have a lot going into the draft. But I do like the Jahdae Barron pick, so I'll give him a B for the Broncos. Next is the Lions so they started off with Tyleik Williams at D tackle. And then you got Tate Ratledge, Isaac Tesla. They did get a pass rusher in Ahmed Hassanin. Excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that. I'm not in love with their draft. I feel like they could have spent more capital on an edge rusher. I feel like they really need somebody next to Aiden Hutchinson on the edge, and I feel like their D tackles were actually pretty solid. so I don't think they necessarily needed to spend their first on Tyleik Williams. I'll probably give it a C plus for the Lions for their draft. Packers are next. They obviously got Matthew Golden. Loved that pick. I don't know about the Savion Williams pick, not because of Savion Williams, because I didn't think they really needed another receiver. You already have Matthew Golden and a bunch of other just good receivers. I don't know if you need another good receiver. And who knows if we can trust athletic TCU receivers anymore. Hasn't been the greatest track record. I liked Anthony Belton. I like Barron Sorrell. It was cool that he was in the draft room when he got picked. I think I like the Golden and Belton pick. It's pretty much it. In terms of like good value, obviously, I'm sure, their 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks are good, but I don't know if they're necessarily any steals. I think that's what you're looking for in those rounds. So I'll give it a C plus or B for the Packers. I really liked Matthew Golden. I'll go C plus. I might end up deleting the C tier because we never know if any of these guys are actually going to be good or not, and you normally have to wait so long. I have a hard time giving teams bad grades for drafts. Texans are next. I like what they did here. Getting the double up on Iowa State receivers not only is cool, but I like it. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, because they need somebody next to Nico Collins, with Dell out for the year probably. They traded back out of the first round, so thought they got good. They traded with the Giants, I think. Don't remember exactly what they got. Ariante Ursary I thought was a good pick because obviously Stroud needs help on that O-line. But I feel like they could have invested more on only one pick on the O-line I thought was interesting. I like the Woody Marks pick too, and Jalen Smith. Jalen Reed I thought was great value in the 6th too, and Luke Locke in the 7th. If they got more O-line, I'd probably put it an A plus or an A, but I'll give it a B plus for now because they still got Ariante Ursary, and their non-O-line picks I really like. Colts are next on the clock. Started off with a great pick in Tyler Warren at 14. And then followed up with JT. Not too familiar with the rest. Hunter Wohler I thought was a very good pick. Got a good running back in DJ Giddens. Didn't really address the interior of the O-line at all outside of Jalen Travis, because they did lose both their interior O-line, Kelly and Fries, to the Vikings in free agency. First 2 round picks are great, good value as well. I'll go B for the Colts. Just fine draft. Next is the Jags. Now, Jags obviously went with the big trade to get Travis Hunter. Gave up their next year's first, but if Travis Hunter has a long career playing both sides of the football, it's completely worth it. They didn't make a lot of picks in this draft. Bracial Tutton, Wyatt Millum. I like those picks. I mean, the Travis Hunter trade up was great. Yes, he gave up a first. Didn't really address a lot of needs at tight end or D tackle. Maybe they should have got like a true receiver because they got a true corner in Caleb Ransaw. Travis Hunter's obviously a great player. Despite giving up a first, I think it's worth it. But I think the rest didn't really make a lot of high picks. I'll give them a B for now. Next is the Chiefs. Unfortunately, I thought they had a very good draft. Josh Simmons in the first, great value. Need help for Mahomes. Omar Norman Lott, late in the 2nd. Ashton Gillette in the 3rd. Noah Williams. Jalen Royal. I think I like every single pick they made. Rashard Smith in the 7th. Jeffrey Bassa in the 5th. I don't know if they made one bad pick initially looking at it. Unfortunately, I think I have to give the Chiefs an A-plus draft, and I will get rid of the C tier. I think I have to give them an A+. Good teams draft good players. What can we say? It's why they're good teams. And the Chiefs, I think, did it again. Chargers are next. They started with a Marin Hampton. Thought was a very good pick. You need somebody next to Najee Harris. Speaking of Harris, you get Trey Harris in the 2nd. Another good pick. Hopefully he can complement McConkey well. Kyle Kennard in the 4th I thought was pretty good. Aronde Gadsden. Got 2 safeties Uh, just another fine draft to me. Nothing too crazy. Nothing bad. Just B draft for me for the Chargers. Rams. I thought they had a very good draft. And they didn't even make a first round pick. I thought the trade back with the Falcons was very good. What they got in return was very good. And then the picks they made themselves. Terrence Ferguson in the second. Maybe could have went, guy like Harold Fannin. But Josiah Stewart, Jarquez Hunter, Chris Paul, all great picks in my opinion. Honestly, I'm going to give them an A. I know they traded with the Falcons, but I think they both did well. I think it was a win-win trade, and I think they both managed the draft after the trade very well. Raiders are next. Very, very good draft in my opinion. Ashton Jeanty in the 6th. Good pick. Not like crazy value. Just makes sense to take him at 6, and it was a good pick. I like the Jack Beck and Darian Porter picks. I like Charles Grant. JJ Pegas in the 6th I thought was phenomenal value. I'm going to give this an A. I'm going to give the Raiders an A draft. I feel like you haven't said that in a while about the Raiders, so I feel like they're going in the right direction as a franchise. Dolphins are next. I mean, initially looking at it, I think it's an okay draft. I like Kenneth Grant. Considering what was off the board and who ended up falling, I think Kenneth Grant it just made sense as a pick to make. Jonas Savanea thought was a fine pick. Brings a lot of versatility on the O-line, and anything to help Tua stay upright I think is good. Jordan Phillips in the 5th. They didn't make a lot of picks, so you can't blame them too much. Feel like they could have went a different direction instead of Ollie Gordon. Maybe even instead of Jason Marshall. So I think it was a fine draft. I'll probably give him a C+, though. Again, C+ isn't bad. Like, I'm not going to give any draft a bad grade because you never know. But C+ is fine. Next is the Vikings. They didn't really make many picks here. It was pretty much Donovan Jackson and Ty Felton are my favorite picks. Kobe King, Gavin Bartholomew aren't bad. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, honestly, just fine picks. I don't think they got any steals value-wise, maybe outside of Ty Felton, but I don't think they reached necessarily either. So I think it's just an average draft. I'll give them a B. Next is the Patriots, who I thought had a pretty good draft. Will Campbell, I think, great pick. Travion Henderson, another great pick. Kyle Williams, Jared Wilson, even Craig Woodson, Josh Farmer, Braden Swinson in the 5th. Potentially the best kicker, Borregales, in the 6th. They had Mr. Irrelevant, Kobe Minor, as well. I think a very good draft. Do I want to give it an A+, though? I'll give it an A. I'll give the Patriots an A. Next is the Saints. Now, a very controversial draft for the Saints. Not many fans were happy with the Kellen Banks pick. I thought it was a fine pick. Initially looking at this, I thought they should have went receiver at some point because you have Chris Olave, who's had some, injuries, and then Rashid Shaheed and Brandon Cooks. Thought they could have used another receiver. Obviously, the Tyler Shook pick is the one everyone's going to talk about. Should you have went Shedeur? Personally, I think so, or maybe even Jalen Milroe for the really high upside. Vernon Broughton and Jonas Sanker, as well as Danny Stutzman, I thought were good picks. But I don't think it was a bad draft by any means, but I will give it a C+. Again, not a bad grade in general, but the lowest on this tier list. But I still thought it was a good draft. Giants are next, a team that I thought did very well in the draft. Abdul Carter, couldn't go wrong with that pick, just a good pick. Jackson Dart, yeah, you traded up. I don't think they traded up that much. And you get, in your eyes, the second best quarterback in the draft, which if he turns out to be that way, could be a very good pick. Darius Alexander in the 3rd, Cam Scatabo in the 4th, Marcus and Bo, all great picks in my opinion. I'm going to give the Giants an A for their draft. I thought it was very good. I like the Giants draft. People are questionable about the Jackson Dart pick, but I think even if you think Jackson Dart was a bad pick, I still think it's a good draft. Jets. Armand Membo was their first round pick again. Just another. It just made sense to pick him. Mason Taylor, good pick in the second. I like Aziri Thomas. I liked Malachi Moore as well. Thought he could have. A lot of teams picked safeties around it. I thought they could have. Thought he should have been picked higher. So I'll give the Jets a B plus for their draft. Eagles, just like the Chiefs, I think unfortunately had a very good draft. Started off with Jahad Campbell at 31 is insane. Andrew Makuba, Ty Robinson, Smell Mondon, Cameron Williams in the 6th, Antoine Powell Ryland in the 6th as well. And then, still got like Mac McWilliams, Drew Kendall, Kyle McCords could be a viable backup. Just like the Chiefs and even the Ravens, unfortunately, I think they had an A-plus draft. Steelers. Now, they didn't get Shador, which is, everyone thought that would be the team to get Shador. I still think getting a guy like Derek Harmon was good. Caleb Johnson in the 3rd. I think Caleb Johnson could be the 2nd best running back in the class. So I love him in the 3rd. Jack Sawyer in the 4th I thought was good. Will Howard, just like Kyle McCord, could just be a viable backup. I think they should have gotten Shador to get, more probably potential at the quarterback position because they don't really have anybody. It seems like they're going to sign Rodgers. I feel like because their quarterback they got was Will Howard, I don't want to give it too high, but I'll still give it a B plus for the Steelers. Seahawks are next. I really like the Seahawks pick. I think they killed it. Gray Zabel in the 1st. Love it. Nick Emenwari in the 2nd, as well as Elijah Roro. Damian Martinez in the 7th. Ricky White in the 7th. Of course, Jalen Milroe in the 3rd. All the upside in the world with him. I think this is an A-plus draft for the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks killed it. They got Sam Darnold a lot of help. You didn't bring him in any immediate competition. Jalen Milroe, I don't think is ready to start. They could have maybe used a pass rusher. So maybe it's an A. But nah, I love the Seahawks draft. I'm going A+. Niners are next. I thought they just had a solid draft looking at it. Mykel Williams made sense as a pick. Alfred Collins, CJ West. A lot of defense. They didn't go offense till their 6th pick in the draft, which makes sense. I thought it was a fine draft. I'll go B for the Niners. Next is Tampa Bay. Now, I was questionable about the Emeka Egbuka pick because they didn't really need receiver. Their defense was clearly their weaker spot on the team. But they get Benjamin Morrison, you get Jacob Parrish, you get David Walker, you get Elijah Roberts. I love those. They could have used a linebacker. I think that's all my biggest, issue, so to speak, with this draft is that they didn't get a linebacker. But outside of that, I thought it was pretty good. I'll go B+ for the Bucs. Titans, obviously, number 1 pick, Cam Ward. Clearly, it just made sense to take him there. Oladeo, thought could have gone high 1st rounder. Not high 1st round, high 2nd round. But you get him in the later 2nd round. Kevin Winston, I know there was the injury, but I love Kevin Winston. Alec Ayomanor, thought was a very good value in the 4th. Same with Gunnar Helm and even Jameer Dyke. I'm going to give the Titans an A for their draft. I was a big fan of what they did. Gave Cam Ward a lot of help with Dyke, Helm, Ayomanor. Their O-line is fine enough, so they didn't need to really go O-line. I thought anything they needed to help Cam Ward, they got, so I like it. Is this the last one? Yeah, the last one was the Commanders. Only made 5 picks. Josh Connerly I liked, gotta help Jaden Daniels. I like the Trey Amos pick. I thought he could have gone easily in the 1st round. Jalen Lane. Didn't make a lot of picks, but I think the picks they made were good. I think Again, I know they didn't make a lot of picks, but I think they could have got a little more on the defensive side. But I'll go B plus for the Commanders because they didn't have a lot, but what they did have, I thought they did well with what they had. And this, I'm not going to make any changes. I like this. This is my final sort of tier list or grades for every team's 2025 draft class. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. Let me know in the comment section down below how you thought your team did in the draft. And if you're new, make sure to subscribe. It helps the channel out so much. But I'll see you guys next time. Peace.